All right, welcome back. The rest of the round 13 picks after Carson Palmer were Laurent Robinson, Daniel Thomas, Ruben Randall, Jared Cook, the Philadelphia Eagles defense, Plaxico Burress, James Starks, Joe Flacco, Bernard Scott, and Pierre Thomas. The top ranked players on ESPN standard rankings are Mike Tolbert, Sam Bradford, Nate Burleson, Leonard Hankerson, Matt Flynn, and Ryan Fitzpatrick. Brent Selleck is down here at 141 overall. Again, just more reasons why this tight end in the second round, I just don't like it. Man, if that had been a quality running back and I would have taken, I don't know, Antonio Gates in round 4 or just some of the other tight end values that can be had later, I think it would have been a lot better off as far as the team is constructed. I kind of wanted to take a moment and show you the difference between the team I drafted in my last video on Yahoo, the 10-team league, versus this team. So the 10-team league, I ended up with Vic at QB, AJ Green, Percy Harvin, and Eric Decker as my starting wide receivers, Ryan Matthews, Trent Richardson, before the news of each of those guys' injuries. At running back, Brent Selleck at tight end. My other running backs on my bench are Jamal Charles, Ahmad Bradshaw, Jonathan Stewart. My other wide receivers are Denarius Moore, Randy Moss, Austin Collie, and I have Ben Roethlisberger as my backup QB. So you can see how much deeper a 10-team league actually is or how much more shallow, I should say, than a 12-team league. And I understand these are kind of cross-platform. One's an ESPN league, one's a Yahoo league, and the rankings dictate who gets drafted where and all that. But just the fact that here my wide receivers, the two best wide receivers on my team, are Victor Cruz and Torrey Smith. Now, a lot of that has to do with the fact that I took Jimmy Graham in the second round, and I kind of pigeonholed myself into taking running backs in the third and fourth rounds. But with that said, just the depth of wide receiver is very much a big deal in 10-team leagues. You can wait and wait and wait and still end up with a lot of quality options. And I think the overall lesson here is that if you want to play in a more competitive league, you should either be playing with 12 teams or just with bigger rosters. 2 quarterbacks, starting 3 running backs and 3 wide receivers every week, maybe even starting 2 tight ends. The deeper your league goes, the more competitive it is, the more you have to kind of know about these sleepers, these guys who are available later in the draft. Anyway, we've got one more pick here before I get in for my round 13 pick. After Flacco and Bernard Scott, Pierre Thomas, Brent Selleck, Mike Tolbert, Steven Gostkowski, the Seahawks defense, Mike Goodson, Alex Henry, Sam Bradford, Terrell Owens, the Falcons defense were all selected. I guess if I have to pick a defense or a kicker in this league, I need to start considering that at this point. The top defenses available are the Lions, the Bills, the Packers, the Cowboys. I like all of those guys to an extent. Not so much the Cowboys as much as the other ones, but the Lions, Bills, and Packers are all quality defensive squads that you could have. With that said, I'm not going to take one yet. I'd rather just stream defenses. I'm probably just going to take Evan Royster here. I've kind of noted how weak I am at wide receiver, or how my top 2 options aren't necessarily as good as those that were in my 10-team league. So it's possible I definitely want to take a wide receiver with one of these last 2 bench spots. I also want to take a running back. And I think I can wait on wide receiver. There are more of these guys deeper that I'd be happy to have. As far as running backs go, I'd kind of be choosing between Royster, Pede, Jaquiz Rogers, Rashad Jennings, and Michael LaShure. All of these guys are splitting carries somehow. Royster's the guy with the clearest path to a starting job. With that said, I think the upside of a guy like Pede or Jennings or Jaquiz Rogers are all a little bit higher. I haven't drafted Pede in any leagues yet. I might just jump on him and see if that pays off. And look at in his little profile picture, he's got a tie on. I like that. We're gonna take Isaiah Pede here. He's a guy who's been getting a lot of good press, and he's playing behind one of the most notoriously injury-prone running backs there is in Steven Jackson. I've never been a big fan of Steven Jackson. He's definitely had some good seasons, but I feel like he's routinely overvalued by most fantasy drafters. After I took P, the Lions defense and Sebastian Janikowski got picked. Man, so here's what I'm looking at now. I'm looking at a defense, another running back, or another wide receiver, or a kicker. And I have to draft a defense and a kicker at some point. I'm definitely not going to draft a kicker till the last round. But because there are all these guys that I'd be happy to take as my last bench player, I think I can afford to take a defense in the third to last round as opposed to the second to last round. And the reason I would do this is because I'd want to get a defense that I like. I took the Bills defense in my last draft, but I also like the Packers defense. Let's take a look at the staff rankings on defenses. I don't know how much time any of us really put into these, but I mean, I definitely ranked them according to how I would draft them. I have the Packers defense ranked pretty high, and the Buffalo Bills defense ranked pretty high as well. I'm gonna go contrary to what I did last time. I'm gonna take the Packers D, just because I like to mix it up. That's another thing I like to do with my teams in general is because I'm in so many different leagues. I try not to have all the same players and all the same teams, because if you have Darren McFadden in all your leagues and Darren McFadden gets hurt, you're kind of just screwed for the season. And because defenses and kickers are such crapshoots in the first place, like as far as the variance between seasons goes, it's not so bad to diversify your defense special teams portfolio, as it were. I don't know, because you can always drop a defense and pick up another one. Anyway, I'll be back in a little bit and recap the rest of the round 14 picks. Okay, so after the Packers defense, Leonard Hankerson, Garrett Hartley, Dan Bailey, Matt Flynn, Brandon LaFell, Matt Prater, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Rashard Mendenhall, John Baldwin, and Ronnie Brown were all selected. Whoa. Everybody's on auto pick now, so the picks are firing off really quick. The Giants D went next, then Greg Little, then Tim Tebow, Rob Aronis, and James Jones. This is all inside of the 15th round. There are 5 picks before it gets back to me, and I've kind of done a 180. I think I'm just going to take another running back here. Because I only have to start 2 wide receivers, I think I'll be fine, at least at the start of the season, between Victor Cruz, Torrey Smith, Mike Williams, and Randy Moss. So now that it's back to me, Jonathan Dwyer, Robbie Gould, Matt Castle, Dustin Keller, and Brian Quick are all gone. I think I'm going to take Evan Royster now. I am also tempted by LeSure to kind of, again, solidify myself as the Detroit Lions backfield owner. But with that said, because Evan Royster does have the chance to be the Redskins starting running back, I'm just going to take him here. And we'll get stuck with a kicker here to finish things out, unfortunately. I didn't talk about drafting a kicker in the last video because I didn't have to. But when it comes down to this stuff, I just try to get a guy who preferably 1 kicks in a dome and 2 plays on an offense that is good. And at the top of the ESPN rankings is Matt Bryant staring back at me. I like him just fine as a fantasy kicker, but I don't think you can go wrong with this Randy Bullock character on the Houston Texans or Nate Kading or even Neil Rackers. They're all the same. They're just kickers. It doesn't really matter which one you get to start the season as long as you make sure that they're not terrible after 1 or 2 weeks. You need to be able to, or willing to, drop and add a different kicker regardless of how much you may like the guy that you have or how many points that guy put up in the previous season, because there really is no correlation between 2011, 2012, which kicker you're going to prefer. But anyway, I'm going to take Matt Bryant here. That's the end of my draft. I will be right back to recap the last few picks of the draft. Speaking of which, Kellen Winslow and Tim Hightower were the 2 picks taken at the turn. After I took Matt Bryant, Neil Rackers was selected, then Delonte Carter. Raven Suck is on the clock. God, I gotta love team names like that. Just kind of give an overview of what my team actually looked like. I ended up with Matt Ryan, Darren McFadden, Ryan Matthews, Victor Cruz, Torrey Smith, Jimmy Graham, Doug Martin, Packers defense, Matt Bryant as my kind of starting unit, and Isaac Redmond, Mike Williams, Kevin Smith, Randy Moss, Carson Palmer, Isaiah Pede, and Evan Royster as my bench players. Ryan Matthews will probably not start the season healthy, so Doug Martin will kind of slot into that number 2 running back spot, and I'll be able to use some combination of Redmond, Kevin Smith, Royster as my flex. it'll probably be Kevin Smith in the first couple weeks while Best is injured and LaShore is suspended. But depending upon matchup, I could definitely see myself getting Redmond some action at the flex, or even Evan Royster if he's named the full-time starter. After Delonte Carter, Alshon Jeffrey was selected. That's a great value in the last round. And then the Bills defense, Cowboys defense, Jaquiz Rogers, Kendall Wright, Ryan Grant, and Deion Lewis. So a lot of good values here in a 12-team ESPN league. Jaquiz Rogers, Alshon Jeffrey. Those guys are going to produce at least a small amount. And the upside, if one of them kind of stumbles into a starting job through injury to either Michael Turner or like Brandon Marshall. I mean, Alshon Jeffrey could be good regardless of what Brandon Marshall does. So those are great upside picks. And this last guy, I don't know if we really care what he does, but we'll stick around and see what happens. He took Christian Ponder. Wow. Well, anyway, that does it. Thank you very much for watching my second draft video here. I will be doing another one of these very soon. I want to try and do one for a 2-quarterback league and one for a PPR league. And I'd love to hear in the comments whether you'd prefer to see me draft on ESPN or Yahoo. I feel like the rankings on Yahoo are a little more indicative of what fantasy owners should be doing. Again, there were a lot of players kind of towards the back end of this draft that I feel like probably should have been drafted, like Rashad Jennings, like some of the tight ends. Kyle Rudolph's staring back at me here. I did not draft a backup tight end, but again, that has more to do with the fact that I drafted Jimmy Graham than anything else. But I don't know. There's something about these ESPN rankings means that anyone who's on auto draft might not necessarily be getting players that should be going based upon ADP of like full draft leagues, and it kind of skews the results of the draft as a result. So anyway, thanks again for watching, and tune in next time for my draft videos.